The streets of Benin City had seen many strange things, but that evening, something unusual happened. A billionaire, feared and respected by many, walked out of his glass mansion holding nothing but a single credit card. Not a car key. Not a bodyguard. Not a bundle of cash. Just a card. To the world, it was just an ordinary black piece of plastic. But in reality, it held access to more wealth than most people could ever dream of in 10 lifetimes. And in his hands, it wasn't just money. It was a weapon. A weapon he was about to use to test the 3 women closest to him. Would they prove loyal? Would they betray him? Or would they surprise him in ways he never imagined? The city would soon learn that money reveals hearts faster than words. Welcome to Nightfall Tales by Wara, where stories breathe, and every twist keeps your heart racing. Stay with us, because what you're about to hear will hold you captive till the very end. Richard Osayande was not just a man, he was a mystery. At 49, he had built an empire stretching across real estate, oil, technology, and politics. His mansion stood tall in Benin City, with walls so high they seemed to touch the sky. People whispered about his money, his secrets, and his past, but no one ever really knew him. He was the kind of man who made others tremble with a single look. Yet behind his piercing eyes, there was a loneliness no one dared to question. Richard had never married. He had lovers, yes, but no wife. Friends, yes, but no one he could truly call family. All he had was his wealth and his constant fear that people only stayed close to him because of it. 3 women stood out in his life. Evelyn, elegant, beautiful, and intelligent. She was the woman Richard had been seeing for almost 2 years. She claimed she loved him for who he was, not for his money. But Richard had doubts. Gloria, his childhood friend. They grew up together on the dusty streets of Benin before he became rich. Gloria had always been by his side, even before the billions came. But still, could she resist the lure of unlimited wealth? Stella, his young protégé. Richard had taken her in, paid her school fees, and mentored her into a rising businesswoman. She called him a father figure. But Richard knew that trust was easily broken when temptation called. For weeks, Richard had wrestled with a question that refused to leave his mind: do these women care for me, or for what I own? And so, one evening, he decided to find out. As the rain drizzled over the city, Richard sat in his study, staring at his black credit card. It was more powerful than any gun, more dangerous than any knife. It could change lives instantly. He smiled coldly and whispered to himself, "If they truly love me, they will prove it." That night, he summoned all 3 women to his mansion. The living room of Richard's mansion glittered like a palace. A giant chandelier hung from the ceiling, casting golden light over the marble floors. The 3 women sat in silence, each on a separate sofa. Evelyn crossed her legs elegantly, her red dress flowing like wine. She looked calm, but inside, her heart was racing. Why had Richard called them all together? Gloria, simple as always, wore a plain Ankara gown. She didn't care much for luxury. She leaned back, her hands folded, studying Richard's face like the friend she had always been. Stella, the youngest, wore a white blouse and skirt. Her eyes darted nervously, unsure what to expect. Richard stood before them, holding the credit card between 2 fingers. "This," he said, lifting it slowly, "is my credit card. With it, you can buy anything you want. Cars. Houses. Jewelry. Even land. It has no limit." The women exchanged confused glances. Richard continued, "I am giving this card to each of you. One by one. You will hold it for 7 days. Use it however you wish. When the week ends, return it to me. That is all I ask." The silence was heavy. Evelyn's eyes lit up for a second before she quickly hid her excitement. Gloria frowned, shaking her head slightly. Stella's mouth fell open. Richard's lips curled into a smile. "This is not just money. It is a test. At the end, I will know who you truly are." He placed the card on the table, its black surface shining under the chandelier. "Evelyn," he said softly, "you will take it first." The room grew colder. The test had begun. Evelyn picked up the card with trembling hands. She tried to look composed, but her mind was already racing. 7 days. Unlimited money. What should I do? That night, she barely slept. Her heart thumped as if it was chasing her thoughts. By morning, temptation had already taken hold. Day 1, she walked into the most expensive boutique in Benin. The staff almost fainted when she swiped the card and bought 20 designer dresses. The receipt alone was taller than a child. Day 2, she drove to Lagos in a hired car and purchased diamond earrings worth millions. Her fingers shook with excitement as she wore them in front of the mirror. Day 3, Evelyn sat in her hotel room, staring at her new treasures. But her joy was mixed with fear. What will Richard think? Will he admire me for enjoying his wealth? Or will he see me as greedy? By day 4, she tried to slow down. She went to a charity home and donated food and clothes. But deep inside, she knew it was guilt speaking. By day 6, Evelyn had spent enough money to buy an entire street in Benin. And then, on the 7th day, she returned to Richard's mansion. She placed the card on the table and smiled. "I used it wisely," she said. "I enjoyed it, but I also gave back to others. That is what life is about, isn't it?" Richard didn't reply. He only nodded, his eyes unreadable. As Evelyn walked out of the mansion, she felt both proud and terrified. Did I pass the test? Or did I fail without knowing? And somewhere in the shadows of the room, Gloria and Stella waited, their own hearts pounding. For one of them, temptation would come next. When Evelyn left, the air in Richard's mansion grew heavier. Gloria sat quietly, her palms pressed against her knees, staring at the black card that had just been returned. Richard's voice cut through the silence. "Gloria, it is your turn. 7 days. No questions. Use it however you wish." Gloria didn't rush to pick it. She looked at Richard for a long time. "Richard, why are you doing this?" A thin smile spread across his lips. "Life is a mirror. I want to see reflections." Those words haunted her as she picked up the card. Unlike Evelyn, Gloria did not run to boutiques. She walked home that night, the card heavy in her bag like a dangerous secret. At 50, Gloria had seen life's struggles. She had raised children on her own after her husband abandoned her. She had watched Richard rise from nothing to power and wealth. She respected him deeply, but she also knew how money could destroy souls. Day 1, Gloria didn't touch the card. She went about her usual life. Cooking, chatting with neighbors, attending church. But the card whispered from her purse, "Use me." Day 2, she sat in her bedroom, staring at the ceiling fan as it spun lazily. What if I use it to pay my children's debts? What if I buy land for the family? Will that make me greedy? Or wise? Day 3, Gloria finally swiped it. Not for herself, but for others. She cleared hospital bills for strangers. She walked into a small orphanage in Benin City and bought enough food and clothes to last 6 months. She even sponsored 5 students' school fees. But as she watched the joy in people's eyes, a darker thought pierced her mind. What if Richard sees this as manipulation? What if he thinks I am buying his trust with kindness? By day 6, rumors began to spread in town. People whispered about a mysterious woman spending endlessly. Some said she had become a millionaire overnight. Others said she had joined a secret cult. And then came day 7. Gloria returned to Richard's mansion, her face calm. She placed the card gently on the table. I used it for others, she said. Not for myself. Because wealth is empty if it does not touch lives. For the first time in years, Richard's eyes softened. But his silence was dangerous. Thank you, he said coldly. Now, go. As Gloria walked out, her heart pounded. She could not tell if she had impressed him or disappointed him. But one thing was certain, this was no ordinary test. When Stella's turn came, she almost refused. She was only 23, young, ambitious, and still learning her way in business. Richard had been like a father to her. Holding the card felt like holding a snake. "Sir, I don't think I can handle this," she said, her voice trembling. Richard leaned forward, his eyes sharp. "If you cannot handle money, you cannot handle life. Take it." Her fingers shook as she reached for it. That night, she sat in her small apartment, staring at the card on her table. She couldn't sleep. Thoughts haunted her like shadows in the dark. What if I lose it? What if I misuse it? What if I fail? Day 1, Stella used the card to buy books, laptops, and equipment for her small startup. She told herself she was being wise. Day 2, she paid for a business seminar in Abuja, hoping to expand her network. But the men she met there saw only her beauty and youth. "With a man like Richard behind you," one whispered, "you can rule this city." Day 3. Her phone rang late at night. A strange voice said, "We know about the card. We know what you're holding. Don't be foolish. Work with us, and you'll never struggle again." Stella froze. How did they know? Day 4, she began to notice shadows following her car. Strange men loitered near her office. Her friends asked where she suddenly got so much money. Fear wrapped around her like chains. Day 5, someone broke into her apartment while she was away. Nothing was stolen except a photo of her and Richard. Day 6, the calls grew more threatening. "If you don't cooperate, we'll make sure you regret ever touching that card." Stella barely ate, barely slept. The card felt cursed now. Day 7, pale and trembling, she returned it to Richard. She dropped it on the table like poison. "I don't want it," she whispered. "This thing brings danger. People know about it. They are watching us. They are watching you." For the first time, Richard's expression changed. A shadow of fear flickered in his eyes. He leaned back slowly, steepling his fingers. "Interesting," he murmured. But deep inside, he knew the truth. If strangers knew about the card, then someone close to him had betrayed him. That night, Richard could not sleep. He sat in his study, turning the card over and over. Evelyn had used it recklessly. Gloria had used it selflessly. Stella had returned it in terror. But someone, somewhere, had leaked its existence. By morning, Richard summoned the 3 women again. When they arrived, the atmosphere was different. The mansion no longer felt safe. The air buzzed with tension, as though invisible eyes were watching. Richard placed the card on the table again. "Someone has betrayed me," he said quietly. "And I will find out who." Evelyn frowned. "Betrayed you? What are you talking about?" Gloria crossed her arms. "Richard, what exactly is going on?" Stella looked down, shaking. They know. People outside know about the card." The women gasped. Richard leaned forward, his voice dropping like thunder. "One of you has a loose tongue. And in this city, loose tongues don't just talk, they kill." The room went silent. Evelyn's lips trembled. Gloria's eyes narrowed. Stella began to cry softly. Richard stood up, his shadow towering over them. "The game has changed," he said. "This is no longer just a test of trust. This is now a matter of survival." And at that moment, lightning cracked outside, shaking the windows of the mansion. Somewhere in Benin City, danger was closing in. And one of the women sitting before him was not who she claimed to be. Richard paced his study like a lion trapped in a cage. The storm outside had died, but inside him, the storm raged on. He wasn't just a billionaire, he was a survivor. A man who had built empires by crushing enemies. And he would not let betrayal slip past him. He called in his private investigator, Henry, a quiet man with scars on his face and eyes that missed nothing. I want you to watch them, Richard ordered. Which of them, sir? Henry asked. All three, Richard snapped. Every move. Every word. Every step. Henry nodded. Consider it done. That night, as the women left the mansion, Richard's men followed them discreetly through the streets of Benin City. Evelyn went straight to a high-class lounge, sipping expensive wine and laughing with strange men. One of them leaned close, and Henry's sharp camera caught the whisper. So, the card is real? He actually gave it to you? Gloria, on the other hand, went to church for a night vigil. She prayed fervently, her hands raised high. But later, she made a private call outside. Henry's ears caught her words. Yes, I used it, but not for myself. I hope he believes me. Then her tone dropped. If not, then everything I've planned will crumble. Stella stayed locked in her apartment. But Henry reported unusual visitors. 2 masked men slipped into her building late at night and left an hour later. When Henry returned with the report, Richard's face hardened. So, all 3 of them are hiding something. His jaw tightened as he whispered to himself. Trust is a luxury I cannot afford. Evelyn was in her bedroom, lying on silk sheets, when her phone buzzed. She smiled at the name flashing on the screen. Hello, darling, she purred. The man's voice was low and dangerous. Did he suspect anything? No, Evelyn replied. Richard thinks I love him. He thinks I am loyal. The fool has no idea. The man chuckled. Good. Soon, the card will be ours permanently. And when that happens, Richard Osayande will fall. Evelyn's smile faded as she lowered her phone. Deep down, her chest tightened. She had feelings for Richard, real ones, but she was trapped. The man on the phone wasn't just a lover, he was dangerous. He knew her past. He had the power to destroy her. As she sat in the dark, Evelyn whispered to herself. Richard, forgive me. I never wanted it to be this way. But her betrayal had already set things in motion. While Evelyn wrestled with guilt, Gloria faced her own demons. She sat in her kitchen, staring at a faded photograph of her and Richard as teenagers. They had been inseparable once, 2 dreamers chasing hope through poverty. But life had changed. Richard became a billionaire, and Gloria became a struggling single mother. Tears stung her eyes as she whispered, if only you knew the truth. Her son, Daniel, walked into the room, his face tense. Mother, did you use the card? Yes, she admitted. But I used it to help others. Daniel clenched his fists. You should have used it for us. For me. Do you know what we could have done with that money? You always think of everyone else, but never your own family. Gloria tried to calm him, but his anger burned. Mother, you don't understand. Men like Richard, they never give without reason. He's testing you, yes, but he's also setting you up. Be careful. Or you'll lose everything. Gloria's heart sank. Daniel was right. Richard wasn't a man to be taken lightly. And if she failed this test, she could lose the only bond she had left with him. But what Gloria didn't know was that her son Daniel had already taken a dangerous step. That same night, he met with men in a dark corner of Benin City. Men who asked him one question. Where does Richard keep the card? Stella sat alone in her dark apartment, hugging her knees. Her phone vibrated again. She refused to pick up, but the message flashed on her screen. You can't hide forever. We know who you are. We know about Richard. Her heart pounded. She thought back to her teenage years in worry. Back then, she wasn't the quiet, ambitious girl Richard believed her to be. She had been part of a gang, a small-time crew that pulled internet scams and petty fraud. She had escaped, reinvented herself, and buried the past. But some ghosts don't stay buried. The men who visited her apartment weren't strangers. They were old faces from that past, and now they wanted her back in the game. They knew Richard's wealth was the golden ticket. Day by day, Stella broke down. She barely ate, barely spoke. Every shadow felt like a threat. Every phone call felt like a warning. One night, her door rattled violently. She froze. A note slipped under the door. Her hands shook as she opened it. "Bring us the card. Or we bring your past to Richard." Tears streamed down her face. If Richard ever found out who she really was, he would never forgive her. In the heart of Benin City, at a quiet hotel, Evelyn's secret lover checked in. His name was Marcus, tall, sharp-eyed, and deadly. He wasn't just a man, he was a predator. Marcus had been the one pulling Evelyn's strings. He knew about the card before Richard ever gave it away. Evelyn had been forced to cooperate, trapped between her loyalty to Richard and her fear of Marcus. When Marcus walked into her hotel room, Evelyn's stomach knotted. "You've done well," Marcus said with a cruel smile. "Now it's time to finish the job." Evelyn shook her head. "No. I can't. Richard trusts me. He loves me." Marcus's eyes turned cold. He pulled out his phone and showed her a recording of her younger sister, bound and gagged. "You don't have a choice, Evelyn. Bring me Richard's card. Or your sister dies." Evelyn collapsed onto the floor, trembling. She had thought she was playing Richard. But the truth was, she was the one being played. Richard sat in his study, the card resting on the table like a black jewel. He felt the walls closing in. The test had grown darker than he planned. Evelyn was too eager. Gloria was too defensive. Stella was too terrified. Someone was lying. Or maybe all of them were. He poured himself a glass of whiskey and stared at the city lights. Then his phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "We know about the card. We are coming for it. Be ready." Richard's hand tightened around the glass until it cracked. "Henry," he barked. His investigator appeared instantly. "Double the guards. Secure the gates. No one goes in or out without my permission." But even as he gave the orders, Richard felt that danger was already inside the house. That night, Evelyn sneaked into the mansion. She moved quietly through the hallways, her heart racing. Marcus's threat echoed in her ears. "Bring the card, or your sister dies." But as she reached the study door, she froze. Inside, Richard was on the phone, speaking in a voice colder than ice. "I don't care what it takes. Find out which of them is the traitor. If it's Evelyn, end her." Evelyn's knees buckled. She covered her mouth to stop a scream. Richard wasn't just testing them anymore. He was preparing for war. And in that moment, Evelyn realized something horrifying. This game would not end with trust. It would end with blood. The mansion was quiet, too quiet. Richard sat alone in the study, staring at the black card, but his mind wasn't on it anymore. His instincts screamed that the walls around him were closing in. Henry, his investigator, entered. "Sir, I have news." Richard leaned forward. "Speak." Henry placed photos on the desk, grainy images of Evelyn with Marcus, laughing in the hotel lounge, their heads too close, their hands touching. Richard's jaw clenched. His knuckles whitened as he gripped the photos. "She betrayed me," he muttered. But Henry wasn't done. "There's more. Gloria has been in contact with unknown men. Her son, Daniel, has been spotted with dangerous people in town. And Stella," Henry paused. "What about Stella?" Richard barked. "She has a past, sir. A criminal past. She's been hiding it." Richard slammed his fist on the table. The chandelier above trembled. "All of them," he whispered, his voice dark. "Every single one of them." The game was no longer about testing trust. It was now about survival. Marcus stepped out of a black SUV parked on a lonely street in Benin. He was dressed in all black, his cold eyes scanning the city like a hunter searching for prey. Behind him, two men carried bags filled with weapons. "This city belongs to Richard," one of them whispered. Marcus smirked. Not for long. That night, he summoned Evelyn again. She sat across from him, trembling. "I can't do this anymore," she whispered. "Richard suspects me. He will kill me if he finds out." Marcus leaned closer, his breath hot against her ear. "You think Richard is the danger?" "No, Evelyn. I am the danger. If you don't get me that card, your sister's blood will be on your hands." Evelyn's tears rolled down her cheeks. She nodded weakly. Marcus lit a cigarette, his eyes glowing in the dark. "Good. Tomorrow night, you will open the mansion door. My men will handle the rest." Evelyn shivered. She was no longer Richard's lover. She was Marcus's pawn. And the mansion, Richard's fortress, was about to become a battlefield. Gloria couldn't sleep. She paced her living room, clutching her rosary beads. Her son Daniel stormed in, furious. "Mother, why do you keep protecting Richard? That man doesn't care about you. He's using you." Gloria turned sharply. "You don't understand, Daniel. Richard and I, we share a bond. He was my first love." Daniel froze. "What?" Her voice broke as she continued. "Yes. Before the money, before the fame, Richard and I were everything to each other. We promised to marry. But life tore us apart. And now, I fear this test is more than money. I fear he wants to see if I ever loved him at all." Daniel's eyes widened. "So you still love him?" Gloria's tears fell. "I never stopped." But before she could say more, a brick crashed through the window. Daniel rushed to pick it up. A note was tied to it. His hands shook as he read. "We know about Richard. We know about the card. Choose your side before it's too late." Gloria clutched her chest. The danger was no longer outside. It was at her doorstep. And for the first time, she realized this test of love and loyalty was pulling everyone into a war they might not survive. The night was heavy with silence. Even the crickets in Benin seemed to sense something terrible was about to happen. Richard stood at the balcony of his mansion, his eyes piercing the darkness. His instincts told him danger was close. Too close. Inside, the women were restless. Evelyn sat on her bed, her phone buzzing with Marcus's message. "Open the side door." Midnight. Her hands trembled. She looked at the clock. 11:45. 15 minutes to decide if she would betray the man who gave her everything, or let Marcus destroy her sister. At 12:01, she crept to the side door, her heart pounding. She opened it, just a crack. And that was enough. Shadows rushed in. Armed men in masks flooded the mansion like a black wave. Guns. Knives. Boots stomping. The air filled with violence. Shots rang out. Screams tore through the halls. The mansion of wealth had become a war zone. In the chaos, Stella grabbed Richard's arm, pulling him into a hidden corridor. She moved with a confidence Richard had never seen before. "Follow me," she shouted. She led him through the maze of the mansion like she had built it herself. Finally, they ducked into a secret cellar. Richard's eyes burned into hers. "How do you know this place? This corridor is not on the blueprint." Stella's lips trembled. Then, with a sigh, she confessed. "Because I used to be one of them. I was part of Marcus's crew. Before I met you." Richard's breath caught. Betrayal sliced through him like a blade. "You lied to me, all this time?" Stella's tears streamed down her face. "I left that life behind. I thought I could start over with you. But Marcus, he won't let me go." Before Richard could respond, an explosion shook the mansion. Dust fell from the ceiling. The war had reached them. Henry, bloodied but alive, fought his way to Richard. Together they barricaded the cellar door. But the attackers were relentless. Suddenly, Gloria appeared, dragging her son Daniel, her face pale with terror. "Richard! We have to leave now," she cried. But Richard wasn't looking at her. His eyes were fixed on Daniel. The young man's phone was glowing in the dark. And on the screen was a message thread, with Marcus. Richard's voice shook with fury. "It was you. You've been feeding Marcus information." Daniel froze. Gloria gasped. "No. Daniel, tell me it's not true." But Daniel couldn't speak. His silence was louder than a confession. Richard's world shattered. Evelyn had betrayed him. Stella had lied to him. And now Gloria's own son was the mole. The test of trust had become a web of treachery, and the spider was closing in. The mansion burned. Flames licked the walls, smoke coiled into the Benin sky, and gunshots echoed like thunder. Richard, Henry, Gloria, Stella, Evelyn, and Daniel were trapped in the cellar. The masked men were breaking through the door. Richard turned to Evelyn. His eyes were not angry, they were cold, calculating. "You opened the door, didn't you?" Evelyn broke down, sobbing. "I didn't want to. He threatened to kill my sister. Please, Richard, forgive me." Richard said nothing. His silence was more terrifying than words. Then Stella spoke, her voice strong. "Richard. Marcus wants you dead. But he doesn't just want your money. He wants your legacy. That black card is not just money, it's power. And if he takes it, he will own Benin City." Gloria gasped. "Then we must destroy it." But Richard shook his head. His voice was a whisper. "No. I will use it, one last time." He pulled the card from his pocket. Its glossy surface reflected the flickering firelight. "If this card revealed their true nature," he said, staring at the three women, "then it will also reveal Marcus's." Suddenly, the door burst open. Marcus entered, flanked by his men. He smiled like a wolf who had finally cornered his prey. "Richard," he said softly. "The game is over. Hand me the card." But Richard's lips curved into a faint smile. "No, Marcus. The game is just beginning." Marcus stepped forward, reaching for the card. But before he could touch it, Richard spoke a word, a code. The card beeped. A hidden chip inside activated. Suddenly, the attackers' phones lit up, their accounts freezing. Alarms blared. Security locks engaged across the mansion. Marcus's face twisted in shock. "What did you do?" Richard's voice was steady. "You thought this was a test of money. No. This was a test of loyalty and a trap. That card is connected to every illegal account you've touched. The moment you came here for it, Interpol was alerted. Outside, sirens wailed. Red and blue lights flooded the gates. Marcus roared in rage, lunging at Richard. A struggle broke out. The women screamed. Daniel tried to help Marcus, but Henry tackled him to the ground. In the chaos, Evelyn grabbed a gun, not to shoot Richard, but Marcus. With trembling hands, she fired. The bullet grazed Marcus's shoulder, sending him crashing to the floor. Stella dragged Gloria and Daniel away, tears streaming down her face. The mansion filled with police. The attackers were subdued. Marcus was handcuffed, bloodied but alive. As he was dragged out, he spat at Richard. "You win today. But trust me, Richard, trust will always destroy you." Silence fell. Smoke curled in the air. The test was over. Richard looked at the three women, his face unreadable. "You all showed me who you truly are," he said coldly. "Evelyn, your fear. Stella, your past. Gloria, your love. But trust is dead to me now." He turned his back and walked out of the burning mansion, the card still in his hand, his figure swallowed by the flashing lights. The billionaire's test had ended. But the scars it left would never fade. They thought it was about money. They thought it was about luxury, wealth, and the shine of a billionaire's black card. But in the end, it was never about the card. It was about trust. And trust was the most expensive thing none of them could afford. Evelyn sold her heart to fear. Stella's past returned like a shadow she could never escape. Gloria's love remained pure, but even love could not stop betrayal from walking through her own door. And Richard, the man who had it all, walked away with nothing but ashes, lessons, and scars. Benin City will whisper this story for years, how a billionaire tested loyalty, and discovered that loyalty is the rarest currency of all. Because in the game of trust, money buys hands. Fear buys silence. But only truth buys the soul. And in Richard's world, the truth was far more dangerous than money.